Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer 40k podcast that we're going to be talking about in this episode, Rogal Dorn and the Horus Heresy and the Great Scouring. I'm your host, Mark. Going to be a fun episode. Christian, heyo, heyo.
Looking forward to it. Talking about the Ned Flanders of the 40k universe.
Ooh.
Rogally Dokally, Rogal Dorn.
Aye. Yeah, no, I suppose if ever you want anyone to watch your home for you when you're away crusading, I guess it would be Ned Flanders or Rogal Dorn for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Nice.
too.
We also got Jordan.
Hey, yeah, excited to talk about our good straight edge Primarch. Always like talking about Primarchs, but this one should be good.
Yeah, I got a little rant. It's interesting you guys both kind of brought up this goody two-shoes aspect of Rogal Dorn. I don't know if I say it now or later. Let's save it, but it's brewing in me.
Don't forget it.
No, I even put it in the episode notes because it's very interesting. But anyways, let's just do some quick housekeeping so we can get to the episode. Come join the Discord. You can buy... Whoa, my notes are fucked. I always have this part at random, but it's...
You can buy me.
Yeah. I think you go to Discord to buy Jordan is what you do on this one. So go to Discord. There's links in the description below, and you can buy yourself your own Jordan.
A copy of the Jordan, not the original. The original belongs to us.
Yeah.
In the basement where I belong.
And you can also join the Patreon and join the Imperial Tithe and support the show. You can get an ad-free version of the show for only $2.50 or the video version for only $5. So consider joining the Emperor's loyal legions in our crusade. Support us.
Absolutely. And if you are a Patreon member, you can join me for some whiskey and Warhammer. We got some tonight, some Jim Beam bourbon today, okay? So good straight Kentucky bourbon. So Patreon members get access to the live stream, and you can become a call-in guest at the end of the show, because who doesn't want that? So yeah. Anyways,
they want a real doll up of you on Redbubble right now is what people in the chat are saying. And they don't want no cheap replicas either. They want real American-made Jordan.
How about a bobblehead? Will they take a bobblehead?
We will find out throughout the course of this episode. Hopefully, yeah, that's the start of negotiation, a full-on sex doll of Jordan and the bobblehead version. I think we're going to land somewhere in a nice medium.
In the middle.
Yeah.
It's the bobblehead with a really big...
I like it.
What's bobbling?
A head is bobbling, but yeah. Anyways, let's carry on.
Rogal Dorn would not approve of this nonsense, boys.
It's not a Slanesh episode.
No, this is gonna be a fun episode. Rogal Dorn I like, man. There's a couple things I discovered about him recently that I'm like, okay, that's even more relatability, I think we would get along. As much as he'd think I'm a silly man, I think we'd have some things to talk about.
Hold on. I was gonna say I do have my Rogal Dorn / Ned Flanders mustache on for today's episode. For those of you who want to join the Patreon and jump in on the live stream, you can see it live.
Yeah, it's filthy, man. I wish me and Christian did the Rogal Dorn.
It's coming. I'm just cultivating mass right now, but
cultivated
in the beard. But
I know it's not literally the Rogal Dorn facial hair. I'm just saying it's very Ned Flanders. So I kind of made that connection in my head.
Yeah, either way, it's filthy. And it is funny. Lots of people think Rogal Dorn has a mustache for some reason. For a long time, they did. And then,
is that right?
Fan art.
Yeah, lots of fan art.
I think he should. I think we should demand that he has a mustache.
Like, the dude can shave his hair. He gets one picture of him taken one time. They're like, nope, that's his permanent haircut. And like,
yeah.
Okay,
he lived for over 100,000 years. Well,
hey, be specific. 200 plus.
Well, I personally believe he's alive, but let's not get spoilery before we get there.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what we're going to talk about in this episode. We'll do the recap of last episode, which is basically his origins, homeworld, the Great Crusade, and him being the coolest guy ever, the Empress Praetorian. Then we get into the Horus Heresy, and that's going to be this episode, basically. And honestly, he just does the Siege of Terra. This guy, that's his job. So lots of Siege of Terra stuff. And after that, the Great Scouring. We've talked about the Iron Cage incident before, and I think it was even us three that got that episode. So it'll be fun to see the flip brutality of it. See if they try to do some Imperial propaganda and write it as some heroic tale with some great accomplishment at the end. And then we'll do some personality stuff. You know, Rogal Dorn has a couple shifts in personality, couple drastic ones over the course of his life.
What's his Enneagram?
What the is that? I don't know.
Oh, you don't know an Enneagram? Oh.
They're made up personality tests.
It's
Don't
like
listen to anyone who tells you otherwise.
Like, I know his horoscope, he's a Scorpio, but like his
yeah, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, whatever. Take your pick.
okay, yeah. Okay, well, at the end of that, we'll figure out which one of those he is as well at the end of this episode. And then we're going to jump into his war gear. He's got a couple really cool pieces. We talk a little bit more about the phalanx again in this. I consider it part of his war gear. So why not? And then we'll just talk about his legacy. So that's today's episode.
You can't make someone's ship or fortress their war gear.
You know, I beg to differ, though.
I mean, you do write the notes, so I can't really dispute with that.
No, yeah, and you know what I write apparently is canon, even though it's all just made up and like none of it's real. I don't work for GW.
Not yet. All right. Let's take it away with Rogal Dorn, the Horus Heresy, and the Great Scouring. Rogal Dorn was found on the icy fortress-laden world of Inuit, a planet where survival demanded discipline and loyalty above all else. Raised within the command structure of the Inuit cluster's ruling dynasty, Dorn grew to adulthood not as a savage or orphan, but as a commander, methodical, measured, and unyielding. His mind was shaped by void warfare and siegecraft, his spirit hardened by a culture that prized endurance and obedience. When the Emperor discovered him, Dorn bent the knee not in fear, but in solemn allegiance. He offered the Emperor his fleet, the Phalanx, and in return was named the Primarch of the 7th Legion, the Imperial Fists.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, let's get into the period of the Great Crusade and what he was up to in those days. During the Great Crusade, Dorn's name became synonymous with fortification, precision, and ruthless honor. His Imperial Fists brought compliance through cold efficiency, their sieges breaking worlds without hesitation or where others sought glory or triumph in bloodshed, Dorn sought only order. He remained unwavering in doctrine, despising waste and arrogance in equal measure. Unlike some of his brothers, Dorn neither coveted recognition nor spurned duty. He walked the stars not to conquer, but to build, to create an Imperium that could endure the test of eternity. For this, his father came to rely upon him above most.
Yeah, he had a very clean record during that time, just like no blemishes, but no like outstanding honors either, besides the fact that like it was all just like, yep, good job, everything's checked.
Just a good soldier.
Then we go into the Emperor's Praetorian. When the traitor legions rose up, the Emperor named Dorn his Praetorian, the final shield of Terra. He technically did it before, but like, yeah, whatever, who cares? There was no ceremonial title, it was a sacred burden. Dorn accepted it without pride, only purpose. As the heresy advanced and the Imperium fractured, Dorn focused all his will on the defense of the throne world. He fortified the Imperial Palace, coordinated the loyalist resistance, and stood ready to die at the Emperor's side. He did not seek vengeance or weep for lost kin. He built bastions of stone and steel, while others raged and bled, knowing that loyalty meant more than fury. It meant endurance, even unto death. Yeah, you know, some people lost a lot of good friends when the Primarchs flipped, but, you know, Dorn, not shifted, really. Unshiftable.
Unfazed. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, like, I just remember reading the first Horus Heresy books where they're just like, brother on brother, and everyone's like, how could this happen? You know, everyone was so shocked, but Dorn, yeah, he's like...
Yeah. A little bit on that psychology. Didn't Dorn have a whole fight with Conrad Cruz before the heresy kicked off, which might have made him probably less shocked that this was possible?
Yeah, was it like...
I remember reading or hearing an audiobook about it.
Yeah, I know they kind of didn't like each other and they kind of quibbled. I don't think it turned into an actual fight though.
No, I think it turned to blows. Yeah, I think they actually like drew blood. So that
How did I not...
But maybe it was just like a 1v1 fight. It wasn't like their armies fighting each other.
It was been a while since I've listened to that audiobook. I don't remember if it involved Legion on Legion or if it was just those two.
I'm sure the Cruz fanboys in the chat right now will
are losing their minds right now.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, fuck these guys. What do they know? They have a podcast? What do they know?
Nothing. I'm sorry, I don't remember something from 20 years ago. But on that note of brother on brother, we shouldn't call it that. Let's talk about the sons of Dorn, the Imperial Fists. During the Great Crusade, the Imperial Fists were a paragon of discipline, stoicism, and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor's vision. Led by Rogal Dorn, they served as the steadfast vanguard of the Imperium, tasked with both securing new worlds and fortifying humanity's hold over the galaxy. The Legion was known for its exceptional skill in siege warfare and defense, laying the groundwork for countless victories through meticulous planning and unyielding resolve. Their loyalty to the Emperor was absolute, and their unbreakable will made them one of the most reliable and steadfast of all legions. Though not as aggressive or charismatic as some other brothers, the Imperial Fists were defined by their near religious commitment to duty, often seeing themselves as the silent, endearing protectors of the Imperium, prepared to sacrifice all in service to the Emperor's greater goal. Yeah, a little bit of a blend of like Death Guard and Iron Warriors. Like they're implacable, advanced, they're very stoic. Obviously into the siegecraft, siege warfare.
No real heroics to them, nothing like that. They're the guys you call if you need to move a couch. And that couch is going to move with a smile on no smile on their face, but
No.
it will be done efficiently and
without complaint.
Yeah, without complaint.
And they're not even going to be angry if you don't give them pizza after.
Yeah. Liar in the chat says Dorn got his ass handed to him. He was found unconscious and covered in wounds. And then he says, but Cruz probably cheated like a skinny soy boy he is. So now we know. I don't know how I missed that in the last episode, honestly. Sometimes I don't know everything about 40K as the thing. So that's the neat part about it. I learn often as I'm writing myself. Maybe somebody needs to call in at the end of this episode and tell us about that so we can kind of get it on these episodes, Anyways, yeah. The cool thing I learned about Dorn, though, going through this was I kind of break my 40K knowledge into two kind of eras. There's like the era when I came into the hobby, and there's kind of 10 years of it. And then the Horus Heresy books came out around like 2008. And then, the era before, we knew about the Horus Heresy. We knew a lot of like defining traits of Primarchs, and we thought X could beat up Y. And then the books came out, and then we knew defining traits, and we knew conversations, and we knew that Dorn got beat up by Cruz, and we started unveiling all this. So the one cool truth I found about Rogal Dorn when reading through the kind of refreshing my knowledge was this silent anger inside of him. We've talked about him being like, this goody two-shoe boy and like all prim and proper and stuff. But I think he's just hiding this caged demon, not a literal demon, but like, that inner demon. So there's a bunch of battles where basically in them, he's normally known, as we say, for just kind of doing the straightforward approach or whatever, the tactical approach. But a couple of them, he kind of gets ferocious. He gets angry and flips the battle and then wins like a super heroic victory, kind of goes above and beyond. He gets driven by passion almost, or like anger typically, and does something out of the book and wins a great crusade or great battle. It was kind of this interesting twist on him where, yeah, like we get this image of him that he's just stoic, but no, he does have breaking points for sure.
Yeah, I know it's in like retrospect. Excuse me. It is in like retrospect, like obviously for the story that GW has established for the 40K universe, largely hinging upon the Horus Heresies, and obviously you need Horus to be a key part of the Horus Heresies. But it does like make you question why didn't the Emperor pick someone like Rogal Dorn as his war master? Who probably would have been way less fickle and a lot more reliable, and you could just poke him a little bit sometimes if you needed that little bit extra out of him, make him a little bit angry, or send Conrad Cruz or something to light a fire under his ass or whatever. Just to, but it. You do wonder, like in retrospect of the writing, like why pick someone like Horus, who is the most likely to rebel against you and try to overthrow you. It seems.
I mean, I don't think that Horus is the most likely. And I think that's exactly it. Like you have the advantage of retrospect, whereas at the time, like there would be no reason to suspect Horus might go off the rails. And how Horus falls is like quite a lengthy process. So yeah, when you line up like Rogal Dorn's achievements versus someone like Horus, like, or even people like the Lion, like there were other candidates for War Master. Yeah, and Sanguinius too, right? So like when you compare Dorn to those guys, like maybe his achievements, he's reliable, but he's not the best. in terms of like
Sometimes that's what you need.
Yeah, I think though the War Master, like you need a little bit of that like spunk to you though. You need to be a driving force. You know, you need to push it all forward. Like Rogal Dorn, I just feel like doesn't have that driving force.
Like I feel like Horus is a visionary. That is
Yes.
kind of what his whole shtick is. He's truly like a leader among men. But again, if you're like, especially in statecraft, if you're putting people like in charge of your state or your bureaucracy, yeah, you put guys like Horus who could overthrow you. You put him in a high enough position where you can keep an eye on them, but then the guys who you really give power are the loyal, reliable guys that aren't going to stab you in the back.
Yeah.
It's just some food for thought. Like,
Yeah, but
I am more wise than the God Emperor. I just
Yeah.
wanted to let you guys know that.
No.
But-
Oh, I think he messed up too picking Horus. I think he should have picked Lionel Johnson. You know, it's his firstborn.
Fair.
Like he's a strategic, brilliant guy. He's just as loyal as any other Legion or any other Primarch out there. We have Jack Cobert. Sorry, Jack says, I feel like Big E wouldn't want him as War Master due to how specialized he is. And maybe that's an aspect too. But yeah, I feel like there's just maybe he would have been fifth choice. You know, I feel like there's just a couple better contenders.
Yeah. Also, Horus had charisma behind him too, and when you have such a varied group like the Primarchs, like they have their interpersonal troubles. Like, good luck if Rogal Dorn's War Master to get Perturabo to comply, and Kurz, and a bunch of them. Whereas Horus was friendly with all of them.
Sure.
So that's also a big thing. So if you want to keep the whole mess of personalities,
Yeah,
in check,
we did on the last episode. Dorn judges other Primarchs, and basically it was just Dorn's opinion on other Primarchs, and they're like cold but distant, or like not very interested in them, or you know, that was pretty much his relationship with all of them. Yeah.
Now, if you guys took a personality test and we did it 40K style, what Primarch would you be in your personality test?
Man, I think I'm so close to Rogal Dorn, except I'm funny. That's the only thing he wouldn't like about me. But like honestly, I got that hidden rage inside me. I've went outside and killed a chicken before. Yeah, I also am Mr. Reliable. Just ask Christian. You know, you can call me. I'll be there for you. Not anymore because I'm in Panama, but
hey, it's the effort that counts.
It's yeah. Okay. No, I think I've always liked Rogal Dorn for sure.
Fair.
What about you guys?
Definitely gonna go with Angron.
Oh, you took
Not much there. Could have been a nice guy, but
that banner is just
Group
hiding
people.
a smashed room.
yeah, it's to hide all the holes in the wall from when I drink monsters and lose myself.
Honestly, I won't lie. I probably identify most with Horus personally, but that's a conversation for another day.
That'd be a warning sign.
Yeah, worried for Lorehammer's longevity all of a sudden.
The Jordan Heresy.
Goodness gracious, the lore helpers have been talking about that for months and months, and I just put Jordan in charge of some people. So now I'm like, uh-oh, what's gonna happen?
This is just a warning, Mark. You better watch out.
God, okay, jot that down. All right, so that's the recap. Let's get into this actual episode and see where she goes. The story takes us.
Yeah, so before the Imperial, so now we're getting into the Horus Heresies, and before the Imperial Fists could complete their journey to Terra, the galaxy was engulfed by the flames of the Horus Heresy. The fleet was delayed for an extended period, trapped by ferocious warp storms that tore at their vessels. When the storms abated, they encountered the wreckage of the Loyalist Guard frigate, the Eisenstein. From it, they learned of the Horus's treasure. Yet Dorn, his first reaction was disbelief. He nearly struck down Captain Nathaniel Garrow, unable to accept that his brother Primarch Horus had turned against the Emperor and the Imperium. It was only through the grim testimony of Garrow and other survivors of the Istvan III massacre, men like Lacton Cruz of the Luna Wolves and the Remembrancer Euphrates Keeler, that Dorn was finally forced to confront the unthinkable truth. Horus, Fulgrim, Mortarion, and Angron had betrayed the Emperor. They were gathering their forces for rebellion. With resolve hardening like adamantium, Dorn acted swiftly. He ordered the Imperial Fists to mobilize, sending them to the Isvan system to engage in war. He, however, would turn to Terra with his veterans, bearing word of this betrayal to the Emperor, no longer with hesitation, but with grim determination to face the coming storm. Yeah, I actually just maybe a month or so ago, maybe a bit longer now, I just recently finished Galaxy in Flames and the whole Istvan 3 battle, which is actually pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's a dope battle. Like, just reading about it, it's like almost half the book, and like when the battle starts, maybe like a third, but it's good. I enjoyed it. So
You do like treachery, don't you, Jordan?
I do.
No.
I
The
bathe
warning
in it.
signs. People will listen in the future and they'll know the warning signs were all there, so
Oh,
obviously
God.
laid out.
So we mentioned that they were sent to mobilize to the Istvan system, but other things were at play. So the Solar Campaign happens. Even amidst the anarchy of the Civil War, the Alpha Legion retained the means to maneuver. Its network of infiltrators and auxiliaries stretched deep into the fractured veins of the Imperium. Not even the Segmentum Solar, nor its bastion of the Sol system itself, remained beyond their reach. This system, seat of the Emperor, heart of mankind, had been placed under the guardianship of the Imperial Fists and their master, Rogal Dorn, newly named Praetorian of Terra. Dorn had transformed the Sol system into the bulwark of ordered defiance. Every planetary ring, every orbital path had been fortified with unyielding precision, shaped into a multi-layered kill zone meant to crush the War Master's advance. But the Alpha Legion did not seek to merely breach Terra's walls. They sought to break the pride of the 7th Legion. To do that, they would strike at the soul of the Imperium and the Imperial Palace. Old agents hidden dormant for decades were called to action. Through guile and sacrifice, the Alpha Legion achieved what none had done before. They penetrated the heart of the palace. Their destination, the Investorary and the Sanctum of Reverence, where the statues of the Emperor's sons had once stood as monuments to the Great Crusade. Two pennants stood empty forever, their statues obliterated, along with the names of their subjects, the lost Primarchs. Of the 9 who turned traitor, their effigies were merely veiled, not destroyed. That was the Alpha Legion's objectives. The infiltrators reached the Investorary, decreeing every traitor monument save 2, Alfarius, and their own, Rogal Dorn, or desecrated, yeah. This was no mere act of vandalism. It was a calculated insult, a challenge, and it was kept from the wider halls of power. None outside the Imperial Fists were permitted to witness it, not even Malcador the Sigillite, not even the Emperor's own custodians. Still, the Sigillite learned of the violation by unknown means. But Dorn, ever steadfast, swore retribution would come. Soon after, the Alpha Legion revealed their hand more fully. A fleet under Hero Master Kel Silonius struck the Sol system's outmost defenses, shattering the quiet void around Pluto and claiming several of its moons. What transpired there is a secret, held by Rogal Dorn and his housecarls alone. Locked behind the stone hearse and sealed mouths, the Praetorian does not forget, and he does not forgive. Somebody vandalized these statues, and he's pissed. He spent years making this palace, and somebody comes and vandalizes it. There's a dick drawn on Dorn's face.
That is kind of funny that the Alpha Legion would invest and like sacrifice these assets that they've been holding for years just to
Decades.
pull this kind of stunt. It's a propaganda war they were fighting.
That's a cool little scene we get though of the different states of these statues. You know, some are removed completely, some have the veils on them. Yeah, kind of a cool picture.
Yeah, not to get too sidetracked, it is interesting because whatever the 2 missing legions did or didn't do that caused their disappearance, it was like a true, like they obliterated their statues and removed their names. There's just an empty plinth. Where even the traitors that they're currently at war with only have shrouds placed over them. So that's a curiosity in itself.
Yeah, that could be a number of things behind that for sure. And we're gonna do the 2nd and 11th legions pretty quick here. Like if this is number 7, we're getting close. We're gonna do it halfway through.
Okay. Yeah.
And I
Well,
definitely will mention that this scene again for sure, because you get so few details, but like this is the state of them. They're removed, but they're still there. It's interesting that the plinths are still there,
yeah,
but
like the
there's no
absence
statue.
would be obvious, right? Like
Yeah,
even in the absence, people would know something's missing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of little clues sprinkled around for them, but we'll save that for that episode. All right, let's get into the Battle of Pluto. To prepare the path of Horus's march on Terra, the Alpha Legion was tasked with the singular purpose to plunge the Sol system into chaos from within. The War Master demanded sabotage, subterfuge, and a systemic collapse. Against them stood the Imperial Fists, unyielding, disciplined, and under the command of Rogal Dorn, the Praetorian of Terra. Yet even Dorn's vigilance would be tested. Alfarius, ever the deceiver, led his fleet aboard the Alpha. In a maneuver of grim cunning, he placed himself and every soul aboard into stasis. His ship's engines, near dormant, crept forward at a crawl, their signatures hidden from the eyes of Dorn's sentries. Warp travel was forbidden. This infiltration would be slow, methodical, and silent. It took a full standard year for the fleet to reach the edges of Terra's bastion undetected. While the vessels drifted forward, the Alpha Legion's hidden claws were already at work. Sparatoi, augmented lethal agents, had deep operating Legion teams emerged from hiding across the Sol system. These sleeper cells, embedded years prior, unleashed coordinated waves of sabotage, assassination, and terror. Worlds burned in confusion. Loyalist forces caught in a storm of unrest were drawn thin. The true target remained obscured: Pluto. As the Loyalists reeled from their assaults, the trap was sprung. The Alpha and over 200 ships emerged from the void. They descended upon Pluto and its moons: Charon, Kerberos, Nyx, Styx, and Hydra. It was a blaze.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you know if those are actually real moons and stuff?
Oh, well, it's debatable if Pluto itself is a planet. Can a moon, or I forget what they classified Pluto as now.
I think like a dwarf planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, can a dwarf planet have moons?
I mean,
apparently, yeah,
could
it does have.
conceivably-
Yeah.
Yeah, rocks could conceivably orbit the if it has any kind of magnetic pull.
Sure, but like, does an asteroid have a moon? Can an asteroid?
Yeah, some asteroids have other smaller bodies circling them if they're large enough.
And they're defined as moons? I'm just asking. I
don't know how they literally define them, but I'm pretty sure that is a thing. Yeah.
We should all ask those new female astronauts. I'm sure they would have. Yes.
Katy Perry would know.
Katy Perry would know the answer to this.
Anyways,
we had her here. Carry on.
If anyone knows her, get her on the Lorehammer podcast. All right. Hydra was the goal, a fortress moon and astropathic relay of immense strategic value. Alfarius led the strike himself. On the ground, his legion struck without mercy. In orbit, the defense fell to First Captain Sigismund. His 30 ships outnumbered more than sixfold. The Alpha Legion's assault was brutal and precise. Fire ships, hidden amidst the enemy vessels, tore into the Loyalist lines. Kerberos, already fallen, was turned against its sister moons, lashing them with macro and lance fire. And yet, even in the face of annihilation, the Imperial Fists stood firm. Cut off, outgunned, they fought on, not in hope of victory, but because duty demanded it. Rogal Dorn's warriors did not falter. They endured. The Sol system may have trembled, but its guardians did not bend. It's interesting that they pit the Alpha Legion against Rogal Dorn, because that is probably the best way to not have a knockdown bloodbath fight if you put someone like Proto Robo versus Dorn, where it's just like a grinding match of endless bodies. But like the Alpha Legion sneaks in, cuts throats, works behind the scenes, and
bypasses defenses.
Right, exactly. Like that to me would be the premium Primarch to pit against Dorn, which is that was a good pick. See, this is why you elect Horus as War Master. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. This is one of those cool things that they add too. Like before these Horus Heresy books, we didn't know what the Alpha Legion was really doing. Well, this is what they were up to. They're doing the preliminary assault.
They're prepping the ground.
Yeah. It sucks to be any Imperial Fists in this situation, because like if you're on Pluto, you're the first to go, and none of you have nowhere left to go. Essentially, like this is what you guys are here for, Fists. You're here to make sure no
one gets in.
Yep,
for sure. I did want to make one tiny little note too on the whole. If Horus would have been the best War Master, honestly, it may not have mattered at the end of the day. Horus could have still rebelled and gathered others to rebel with him. So, it might not have made a difference who was the
Well,
War
fuck.
Master.
Maybe even you name Lionel Johnson as the War Master, and Horus rebels because of that,
Yeah,
and takes
exactly.
half the people for sure.
Here's an interesting thought, though, Jordan and Mark, also on Dorn being War Master. There is a whole alternative universe that we should do an episode on called the Dornian Heresy.
Yeah.
So
Ooh.
I want to reach out to that guy and see if I can share exactly what he's written. Like, I don't want to have to, like, with GW, I pretty much rewrite what they write for my notes. I just want to read what that guy's written. So I'm gonna hopefully like try to get him,
on
reach
board.
out to him, and yeah. And even if that guy wanted to come in and share it, that would be a fucking sweet episode. But
Was it one guy or was it like a community project?
I don't recall. And it maybe if it's a community project, I just go for it and just read what they have. But I just don't want to get into trouble and like steal people's work, you know.
He already stole it from GW, and GW stole it from various sci-fi sources. So
Yeah.
join in the pit of thievery.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Liar in the comments says he maybe disagrees a bit. He says, "I'm not sure Horus could have garnered the same support if he did it before he was War Master." Yeah, fair, maybe. He like we mentioned before, he's probably among the most charismatic and like natural leaders of all the Primarchs. So if anyone could do it, it would probably be him. But yes, it would be a much bigger mountain to climb if he was not War Master, if he was just another Primarch.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, let's get into Death and Rebirth. Amid the spreading chaos of the Soul System, it was Archaemus, Rogal Dorn's master of the Huskarls, who discerned the Alpha Legion's true objective, the sabotage of Hydra, linchpin of the Imperium's astropathic surveillance network. Realizing the depth of the threat, Archaemus rallied his Huskarls and launched a direct assault against the heart of the traitor incursion. There, at the threshold of the chamber, he confronted the architect of the invasion, Alfarius himself. Funny thing, what is it? What do they call him there? The astropathic surveillance network. Kind of sounds like remote viewers or something like that.
Yeah, I'll get some more information on exactly how that operates.
Okay, yeah. The engagement was brutal. One by one, the Huskarls were cut down, their gene-forged discipline pitted against a Primarch's fury and savagery of his Lernian Terminators. Archaemus, gravely wounded and alone, fought on regardless. He did not fall easily, but he did fall. Victory for the traitors seemed inevitable. The defenders bled. The system's outer defenses had been pierced. Then, from the void, salvation came. The Phalanx, Rogal Dorn's massive star fortress, emerged with a vengeance, leading a fresh Imperial Fists fleet, bolstered by the Armada Imperialis, exploiting the gravity wells of the solar system. Dorn had launched his counterattack with mathematical precision, slinging his forces towards Pluto in a sudden and furious strike. Upon arrival, Imperial firepower silenced the captured batteries on Kerberos. There was no pause, no delay. With righteous fury, Dorn led his surviving Huskarls in a teleport assault directly into Hydra's astropathic sanctum, into the jaws of the Alpha Legion. There, brother met brother.
This seems like another one of those moments of passionate brilliance that he gets, or like this doesn't seem like the typical, okay, we're defending Terra, why would you bring all your guys out there? Something must have pissed him off, and we know what pissed him off. His statue got vandalized. So yeah, he kind of like goes away from the standard playbook. Mr. Reliable does break every now and again, so it is fun when he does, and you see these kind of moments of like surprise.
It works exactly for that reason too, because people don't expect him to do unexpected things.
Yeah.
So it is twice as surprising. It's also a little bit of foreshadowing too, I feel, for the Emperor's gambit when he goes after Horus too.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's another great example. We'll get to that when we get there, but yeah.
Rogal Dorn, grim and unyielding, faced Alfarius in single combat amid the slaughter. As the two Primarchs clashed, Archaemus, dying yet conscious, witnessed the duel unfold. When Alfarius moved to drive his pale spear into Dorn's heart, Archamus, summoning the last of his strength, rose to strike. His CX struck true, but harmlessly glanced off the weapon's haft. The wound would have been fatal had Dorn not foreseen it. The Praetorian accepted the blow to his shoulder, pinning Alfarius in place with one hand. He seized the pale spear with the other. He brought down Storm's teeth. Steel screamed. Alfarius's hands were severed, his torso split, and with one final merciless swing, Dorn cleaved through his brother's skull. Alfarius died at Dorn's feet. In the wake of his death, the Alpha Legion fractured. Their fleet withdrew, abandoning Pluto. Elsewhere, across the void, Omegon, twin to Alfarius, felt the moment of his brother's end. Emotionless and silent, he received word that the War Master demanded Alfarius report the results of the operation. Without hesitation, Omegon did what he had done so many times before. He became Alfarius, and the Shadow War continued.
Fucking violent scene.
Dorn has joined the ranks of the few Primarchs who have killed other Primarchs.
Yeah. Hollowed and yeah, not very many have done that. And he does it in such a crazy way. Like, he treated Alfarius like he was kind of a little bitch, really, the way he did it. It wasn't like this climactic battle, and like, yeah, it seemed like it went really quick.
Yeah, he like didn't kill him with honor. He just like wanted to
Yeah.
slaughter him.
I almost picture like Count Dooku. Like, it's like this almost unceremonious, like, wait, you're not even gonna try to take him in for questioning, or like you're just he's gone. Like, it was just quick.
Yeah. I kind of like it rather than like a long drawn out sort of cliched killing, brother versus brother kind of thing.
And it battled across moons for 7 days and 7 nights, and neither did none of them shit.
Yeah.
But whenever fighting Alfarius, can it ever be truly known whether or not it was the Primarch who was slain that day?
Yeah, that's always fun, isn't it? There is that little bit about Omegon kind of feeling it, but like, man, I think I would have to read the actual novels or like to get my own personal view on that. But I kind of like the unknown of it.
Well, the nice thing about Alpha Legion is they have the two. I'm okay with one of them getting killed, and I think they should, because not enough. Whenever Primarchs get involved, they never actually settle things. I
feel like it kind of almost actually makes the Alpha Legion have a reason for being chaos. Like, we'll get to it in their episode, but like, they're not in it for the same reason as the other legions are. Like, and this could be their kind of tipping point for them. But the siege continues, and the defense of the Imperial Palace happens. Tasked with preparing Terra for the oncoming storm, Rogal Dorn turned his unflinching will towards fortifying the Imperial Palace. He oversaw every measure personally, transforming artistry into bulwark. Towers, once wrought from beauty, were clad in steel. The elegant lines buried beneath ferrocrete and adamantium. Dorn mourned the ruin of perfection. But new sentiment had no place in war. Function would endure, aesthetics would not. Under his command, fortress bastions rose from the bedrock of Terra, bristling with millions of artillery pieces and layered defenses. The palace became a citadel, a mountain of guns and reinforced stone, capable of weathering the firestorm to come. Elsewhere, his warriors bled. Elements of the Imperial Fists still dispatched to ravage Mars, where loyalist forge complexes still held out against the Dark Mechanicum. Under the captain Cambia Diaz, the Fist struck deep into the chaos-soaked planet, enduring grievous losses to seize critical material, thousands of Mark VI power armor suits, munitions, and weapons. It was a necessary sacrifice. Those arms would soon line the walls of the palace, standing between Terra and annihilation. That's kind of cool. Just go raid Mars. Hey, we need these. Mars is like, we're being sieged to. They're like, nah, you'll be fine. They're not here for you. While the Siege of Terra began, Dorn stood resolute upon its battlements. His remaining warriors fought alongside the Blood Angels and the Silent Custodians, each one prepared to die before yielding a single step. The hour was grim, the enemy was relentless. Then came the final moment, when the War Master dropped the shields of his cursed flagship. An opportunity was seized. Clad in the last surviving suits of Terminator armor, Dorn led his finest veterans into the teeth of madness, teleporting directly into the bowels of Horus Heresy. But the touch of the warp twisted their path, and the Emperor's champions were scattered. Maybe before we move on a little bit here, the Siege of Terra is an interesting thing. We're going to talk about it many times. So when I was writing about it from the Imperial Fist point of view, honestly, like, what were they up to? They were just standing on the walls and shooting at people. Like, they weren't like the White Scars who were going out taking starports. Like, that was their duty. So they didn't have this whole. I didn't want to waste too much time writing about it, honestly. Because they just stood there one by one, and Imperial Fist died. Each one by one, the defenses were slowly pushed back until this critical moment of Horus lowering his shields. When the battle no longer could be won, it seemed, or like reinforcements were on the way, I think is kind of what happened with Rebuke Gilliman on the way and Lionel Johnson, and I think the Space Wolves as well.
Yeah, and Horus knew that, so he kind of provoked the Emperor to make a gambit by dropping his shields on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, that was part of the plan.
Yeah, and up until this point, the Rogal Dorn and the Blood Angels and the Fists, they kind of held as best they kind of could. And, right now, that's kind of where they're at, left on the planet. But Dorn and his sons landed furthest from the bridge. Undeterred, they carved a path through the warp interior of the vessel, forcing their way forward, step by bloody step. But each time, the enemy ran, but time ever the enemy ran short. They arrived too late. Dorn was the first to reach the bridge, where silence and ruin reigned. There, amidst the broken remnants of the greatest battle ever fought, he found the shattered form of the Emperor, the lifeless body of Sanguinius, and the corpse of Horus. The duel had already ended. From the dying lips of his father, Dorn received final orders, terse and absolute. How the Imperium must survive, what must be done. Then, without ceremony, he bore the Emperor's ruined form in silence back to the surface of Terra, placing him upon the golden throne, where flesh would fail but duty would persist. For 10,000 years, that moment endured. Dorn did not weep. He did not falter. He obeyed. Yikes. It all happened so quick, man. Once again, okay, they're fighting on the walls, and ultimately we know this battle has to happen, but yeah. Lots of people wish they could have been there for it who weren't there.
Yeah, exactly. And Sanguinius, Dorn, and we're ready to go toe to toe with Horus, backing up the Emperor. That was the intent.
Yeah.
They were teleporting to the ship to fight Horus together. But
then that would be a fun battle, Rogal Dorn and Sanguinius versus Horus. Fun.
Could have been interesting. Yeah, but it was not to be. And by the time Dorn gets there, it's too late and everything's already done. He's just there to pick up the pieces, which also shows the way he does it too. Same thing. He shows up to this horrific scene where brothers are dead. His father is pretty much dead. And the Emperor of mankind, the greatest being to exist. He's utterly loyal. And
you were named his Praetorian.
Yeah. And you're there and you pick up his corpse and you just do what he tells you to do. He put him on the golden throne. It emphasizes who Dorn is as a character, right? You show up and pick up your dad and greatest man's corpse essentially and still do your duty. He doesn't break down. He's not he doesn't even shed a tear over it. He just does what he needs to do.
Yeah. He does change because of this. You're right. He still will always do his duty, this man, but he goes quiet for sure.
And that leads to the events following the Horus Heresy, known as the Great Scouring. The Great Scouring was the brutal purge that followed the end of the Horus Heresy. A final relentless war aimed at cleansing the Imperium of the traitorous forces that had once sought its destruction. It was a time of vengeance and retribution, as the loyalist legions hunted down the remnants of the traitor legions, eradicating them from the galaxy. This was no swift or merciful campaign. Each traitor warlord and their followers were hunted across countless worlds, their forces shattered in bitter conflict. The Scouring not only shattered the traitor legions, but forever scarred the Imperium, leaving its ruins to bear witness to the bitter price of betrayal. It was a war waged with brutal precision, ensuring that those who had sided with Horus would never again threaten the Imperium's existence. Yeah, this whole era, I do believe GW will make it their next Horus Heresy series.
That'd be sweet.
I don't know that that's been confirmed or not, but I'm pretty sure that would be the next step, is to do the whole Scouring era. And they're essentially, just pushing, like, the Horus Heresy wasn't that long relative to like the Great Crusade, but it was years of conflict, and they were, the traitors and rebels were taking planets, right? They were holding territory. So this is just pushing them all back as far as they'll go, which ultimately ends up with them all essentially retreating to the Eye of Terror. But
yeah, like ultimately they were successful in ridding the galaxy of them, except they're now in a different little
pocket dimension.
Yeah, that they can poke out at. But yeah.
Can you guys tell me? I haven't actually checked. Like, how long does the Great Scouring last? And also, will GW, if they do this whole era, are they going to write like 700 books on it?
I'm sure they would. Anytime there's an opportunity to cash in. That's what I was gonna say. Like, if originally the Great Scouring was like a week long, they're gonna drag it out to be like a 10-year conflict.
Yeah.
They don't really have a date. They say 015 M31 to $M31. So it could be 1,000-year time frame, which, scouring the whole galaxy, if it took 200 years in the Great Crusade, now you have to do it again just against traitor space marines. Maybe it takes couple 500 years. Who knows?
Takes long enough to make some more money. That's what it is.
Yes, sir.
Lord Commander of the Imperium. The title of Lord Commander of the Imperium stands as the highest military rank within the Imperium of men, second only to the Emperor himself. The first to hold this title was Rogal Dorn, the stalwart Primarch of the Imperial Fists, who bore the mantle during much of the Horus Heresy, the Great Scouring. However, in time, Dorn relinquished this command to rebuild Guilliman. After the heresy, Guilliman assumed full control of the Imperial armed forces, taking the title of Lord Commander to restore order to the Imperium and enact the reforms for which he is known. He remains a sole figure in the Imperium's history to wield such dominion over the Imperial military. Prior to Guilliman's rise, the war machine of the Imperium was guided by the War Council. As Lord Commander, he also became one of the High Lords of Terra. So, Dorn essentially just inherited overall command of Imperial forces, and then at some point gives it over to Rabot, who does the whole Codex Astartes thing, breaks down all the legions, and mashes up the Imperial military to no longer be this massive engine of destruction.
All right, let's continue on with the Great Scouring. In the aftermath of the Emperor's internment upon the Golden Throne, Rogal Dorn was consumed by silent anguish. The burden of failure weighed heavily upon him. He believed it was his weakness that allowed Terra to burn, his inadequacy that forced the Emperor to sacrifice himself. With sorrow buried beneath iron will, he led the Imperial Fists on a relentless crusade of penitence, striking at the remnants of the traitor legions wherever they could be found, seeking atonement through war. But the Imperium had changed. Summoned back to Terra by Reboot Guilliman, now Imperial Regent and Lord Commander, Dorn was presented with a new vision for the Space Marines, the Codex Astartes. Guilliman demanded the breaking of the legions, fragmenting them into smaller chapters of 1,000 warriors. To Dorn, it was quite a condemnation, a veiled accusation that he had failed the Emperor, that trust in his legion had been broken. Rage burned within him. The 7th Legion had stood unbroken through the fires of the heresy. To divide them now felt like betrayal. Yet Dorn understood the stakes. Another civil war born from pride and defiance would finish what Horus had begun. Grimly, he accepted the second founding. But it was not an act of peace. It was an act of sacrifice. For Dorn, it marked the death of his legion and the shattering of its brotherhood. The light of the Great Crusade had dimmed the Imperium. They had bled to build. They had bled to build no longer trusted its own sons. Yeah, it's I feel like it would be pretty devastating. Just putting myself in, being an empath here, putting myself in Rogal
Shut up,
Dorn.
Jordan.
Yeah, there is such a like strong band of brotherhood in the legions, and they rally so much around their Primarch. To like break them up like that would be like very, very devastating. And I think it's hard to like overstate how painful that would be for a Primarch and presumably any of his high-ranking captains and whatnot. So
Yeah, it was a big conflict, and the Primarchs did kind of split over it too. Half of them thought it was a good idea and supported Guilliman, and the idea of the Codex and Guilliman. The other half didn't, and you can kind of see from both angles, right? Like you said, like that strength, especially a legion who was loyal. Like,
yeah, they're like, we just fought hell itself, and you're
yeah,
calling us kind of like we're gonna break now. You're saying now after all that.
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So it's almost a slap in the face too at the same time. And like, why should you lose your legion because your other brothers went rogue, right? Like that doesn't seem fair at all. But unfortunately, or fortunately,
Duty persists.
yeah. And like I said, there were other Primarchs. Vulcan and Leman Russ, I think, also didn't want to break up their legions. And you can kind of see, at least with Leman Russ, I don't know a lot about the Salamanders, but I know, the Leman Russ is very liberal with the Codex, if not completely non-compliant. And Dorn does work in a workaround with his legion as well, which I don't know if we'll mention in this episode, but we probably have mentioned in the past. But
amid this darkness, the Imperial Fists drifted hollow and restless, without the focus of war. They stood on the precipice of their purpose, uncertain. Dorn himself was racked with despair. He had hunted traitors while the soul of the Imperium shifted beneath his feet. Now, even his loyalty was questioned. When the strike cruiser Terrible Angel was fired upon by the newborn Navis Imperialis, Dorn saw the future clearly. The Imperium was not one of gratitude, it was one of control. Then came the challenge. The Iron Warriors, sworn enemies of the Seventh, constructed an immense fortress and dared the Imperial Fists to bring it down. Dorn did not hesitate. The gauntlet had been cast. But before the final reckoning, Dorn sought clarity through agony. Using the pain glove, a relic of torment, he descended into meditation. For 7 solar days, he endured suffering beyond comprehension. And in that crucible, he found a vision. The Emperor, though silent, still watched. He was not dead. He endured, and his sons must do the same. Dorn emerged, changed. He declared that the Legion must pass through the pain as he did, to be broken not in shame, but in rebirth. The Iron Cage, as the Iron Warriors' fortress came to be known, would be their trial. The blood they spilled there would be the price of their transformation. The assault began. It was no campaign. It was a slaughter. The Imperial Fists hurled themselves at the fortress in endless waves, each death a sacrifice, each wound a penance. The cost was catastrophic. The Iron Cage shattered the 7th Legion and marked the end of the Imperial Fists as a unified force. But Dorn did not weep. The Legion was broken, as it had to be. Pain had forged their rebirth, and from the ashes, new chapters would rise, grim and resolute, the scars of their father's sacrifice.
Yeah, wild. So this is kind of the flip side of that Imperial Cage incident. Yeah, we could talk about how they grinded through layers of defenses and each little tricks that Perturabo had, but ultimately it's funny from Perturabo's point of view. This was like his crowning moment. He became a demon prince because of this, I think. And meanwhile, Rogal Dorn had the exact kind of opposite kind of that he wasn't seeking glory. He's like, yeah, every wound you inflict on me is well deserved. This is why we're here, actually. Perturabo, you're doing me a favor here. Once again, denying poor Perturabo any glory.
Yeah, he can't even get what he wants even when he's winning.
Which is kind of fun, I think.
Driving him further into the arms of chaos. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's move into the tragic tale of what happens to Rogal Dorn. Dorn endured where others fell. Among the longest lived of the Emperor's sons, he carried the burden of loss with silent fortitude as his brothers vanished or died one by one. Yet even as the 31st millennium waned and the cult of the Emperor grew into idolatry, Dorn rejected such deification for any of the Primarchs. Only the Emperor, he declared, was worthy of worship, for his sons had all failed him, each in their own way. In 781 M31, Dorn vanished from the pages of history. Amid the fury of war, during the opening strikes of the First Black Crusade, when the Traitor Legion surged from the Eye of Terror under the banner of the Black Legion, Dorn faced annihilation. Abaddon, the Despoiler, heir to Horus, commanded a war fleet far larger than the scattered Imperial forces, but Dorn did not retreat. He chose the offensive. With 3 companies of the Imperial Fists, he struck with surgical precision, launching relentless boarding actions that crippled Chaos warships and turned their weapons against their own. With each engagement, the odds worsening, but Dorn pressed on, committed to breaking the enemy before they could cross into Imperial space. So yeah, just to kind of set the tone a little bit, picture that like the scouring happens, like thousands of years pass, and you're like kind of the last of the Primarchs left in the Imperium. Like everyone's disappeared, their own stories kind of play out, and then Dorn is just left behind to like kind of live with his failures,
Just to endure.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
and again, like he's carrying the burden of like, you know, there's self-blame there of like even what happened to as far back as what happened to the Emperor, right? Like, and then to have the Black Legion reemerge, you know, again, to the Black Legion time passes differently because they're in the warp, but like in the Imperium, they thought Chaos is almost like gone as a threat. They're like, we chase them into this place, they're gone. They've left us alone for this long period of time to rebuild. And in Dorn's case, like he's watching the Imperium start to decay into like the 40k Imperium that we know. So there's a lot of failure on Dorn's shoulders at this point.
Yeah, like we do have that date of his vanishment where it's 781. So like he's been around for basically at this point 1,000 years, 200 years in the Great Crusade, and then 700, 800 years now in this era. But yeah, like just that is kind of narrows down the Great Scouring a little bit. Like yeah, so at least it can't go for more than 700 years, the Great Scouring, because eventually they do come back in the Great Crusade or the Black Crusade.
It's not as narrow as you think.
No, but you could narrow it down even more. Like
Sure.
you talk about that vanishing or whatever, where the Imperium thought they were safe, so that's not a 3-year period.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do anything more with it. Because even like we're talking about the next series, well, this would be probably the kind of final moment of it. I would imagine the final.
Yeah, this would be like the Siege of Terra for the Scouring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. His final act was an assault upon the heart of darkness itself, the bridge of the Sword of Sacrilege, Abaddon's flagship. None survived, no transmission escaped, only silence. Some whisper that the chief librarian of the Fist recovered Dorn's body, echoing the moment when Dorn had once borne the Emperor from the ruined bridge of the Vengeful Spirit. Others claim nothing was found but his left hand, shattered and burned, yet unmistakably his. The skeletal fist now rests in a shrine aboard the Phalanx, held in stasis as a most sacred relic of the chapter. Etched upon its bones are the names of every chapter master who has led the Sons of Dorn. Each mark a vow of loyalty, sacrifice, and unyielding duty. This, quote, hand of Dorn remains a symbol of what is demanded from all who bear the Imperial Fist heraldry, victory or death. Whether it is truly his hand or not is irrelevant. It is a relic of meaning, not proof. And yet the mystery endures. Vulcan, reborn during the War of the Beast, once told Courland, who is an Imperial Fist, he would carry a word to Dorn, suggesting his brother lived still. But the Night Haunter spoke otherwise. In the silence of Nostramo, Krurs had foreseen Dorn's fate, torn apart in righteous fury upon the Sword of Sacrilege. He later confirmed that vision as truth before surrendering himself to the death at the hands of Emshen. Thus, the question remains unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. Did Dorn fall? Or does he still watch from the shadows, unbroken, awaiting the day his blade will be needed again? Either way, the Imperial Fists endure, for Rogal Dorn taught them to.
Yeah, fun. So fucking who could have killed him on there? That's what I'm wondering. Did he just get ripped apart by like a bunch of greater demons or something? Like what happened?
Yeah, I think it would be a numbers game. Someone like Abaddon would definitely be bragging about something like that if it was him. And he would be the only individual powerful enough to do it by himself. and debatably so. I don't know personally how.
Yeah, I don't think Abaddon could, but
yeah. But and you know, Kurz's vision is to be trusted, which I think you should be skeptical. Also, like to be torn apart by multiple hands implies like
you don't trust the guy who wears people's skin.
I usually, as just a general life advice, I don't typically follow people who do that. But yeah, it is interesting. I obviously like with someone like Vulcan saying that they will take word back to Dorn implies very heavily that Dorn is still alive. Like Vulcan, why would Vulcan lie about that unless he's also crazy from all his torture sessions? But
Yeah, or it could be like Vulcan knows he's gonna die soon, but Vulcan can't die, so it's not like Vulcan's gonna meet him in some afterlife and say hello. So yeah.
So I always like assume that was the case, especially when they found only his hand. Like that tells you that okay, maybe he comes back with an iron hand.
Oh shit! Wait, so he gets the Imperial Fists and the Iron Hands chapter.
Okay, can I go on this tangent real quick?
Yeah, I think this is the perfect time.
I have written a fan chapter that is the Iron Fist. Yeah, I think the Iron Fist, which Dorn comes back. He is kind of like a Darth Vader type figure. He's like all black and he's got like machine limbs. And then he's venerated both by the Iron Hands who don't have a Primarch anymore and the Imperial Fist, and he unites the two chapters, and his color scheme is black and yellow. And yeah, that's all I got so far.
I like it. I fucking love that, actually. Honestly, it solves that problem of like, GW, you sons of bitches. If you bring back Ferrus Manus, I'm gonna be pissed. Like, don't do it. But
don't do that.
Yeah, but then they can still have a badass Primarch model that no one's gonna want. But no Iron Hands player is gonna want them, but they can have them nonetheless.
I feel like there's too many Primarchs that could potentially come back that are maybe dead, but maybe they're not really.
But that's the point. So that's what I like is like you have all these Primarchs that you pretty much know are coming back. People like Vulcan or Leman Russ, Korax, right? Like they are written vaguely on purpose because the implication is there's supposed to be some kind of Ragnarok type event where they all suddenly emerge in the end times to do final battle. Now,
well, we're in those times though now. Those prophecies are happening.
Sure. It goes into the debate of whether or not they should actually fulfill that prophecy, right? Are they still alive or are they dead? Like leaving the question is sometimes better than answering it, as we've said many times. I think this is also one of those cases, but very obviously we are going with the Return of the Primarch. So if that's the case, then
we did an episode called Return of the Primarchs many years ago, and it'd be interesting to see if we got our predictions right from that episode, because at that point they had only done Guilliman, but now we got a handful more. So yeah, his death is it's interesting. There's a bunch of different things in like our real life meta of writing that happened too. Like in one edition his hand was found, in the next edition it was his body, and then they kind of came out with like a collective of all of it and some of it, or it kind of cleaned it up a little bit more.
There's perhaps some controversy, some conflict with the canon and his death. In older canon, it was originally stated that Dorn died aboard the Chaos battleship Sword of Sacrilege after leading a desperate attack on its bridge. The only trace of the missing Primarch uncovered by the Imperial Fists' subsequent search was a single fist. Dorn's skeletal hand was returned to the phalanx where, over the years, it has been scrimshawed, the bones intricately engraved with the heraldry of the Imperial Fist chapter's previous chapter master. Only the current Imperial Fist chapter master has the right to engrave his name upon the bones. Even with minuscule script, 10,000 standard years of history have left the bones covered in names, giving a list of the Imperium's greatest heroes. Each bone corresponds to former commanders of the chapter. For instance, the left hand first metacarpal contains the names of chapter masters Bronwyn Abermort, Maximus Thane, Kalman Flodensbog, and many others, while the first phalange of the thumb bears the name Ambrosian Spactor, and so forth. The Hand of Dorn is the Imperial Fists' holiest icon, and it serves as a reminder of sacrifice and commitment. So it was that throughout the Imperial Fist history, from the Orc onslaughts of the 32nd millennium to the 13th Black Crusade, they have drawn inspiration from their Primarch's remains and resolved to defeat their foes or die in the attempt. Whether the Fist actually belongs to Rogal Dorn or his remains lie elsewhere is unknown. It is even possible that Dorn survived the assault upon the Sword of Sacrilege. Whatever his fate, its truth is known only to the Emperor at present. According to Ian Watson's novel Space Marine, which is now considered an apocryphal tale, Dorn's skeleton, without its hand, is encased in clear amber, which is formed in the shape of the Primarch's body. Dorn's skeletal fists are kept within 2 shrines on the phalanx, the bones intricately engraved with the heraldry of all the Imperial Fist chapters' previous masters. In the Index Astartes 2 article, Imperial Fists, the Imperial Fist Space Marines chapter, Dorn's death is said to have taken place soon after the disappearance of his brother Primarch, Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard. That would mean Rogal Dorn died not long after the Great Scouring began in the early 31st millennium, following the end of the Horus Heresy. Official Imperial records also state that Dorn died leading an Imperial Fist assault on a Chaos Despoiler class battleship, the Sword of Sacrilege. As this type of battleship was not first built until the mid-36th millennium, this would not be possible, as Rogal Dorn was already long dead. Though it is possible that perhaps he led the Imperial Fists far longer than previously reported. That's interesting. I almost kind of like the old canon death and like his remains being turned into holy icons. You know, if you look into the Catholic and Orthodox churches, they have a ton of these where it's these old saints like heads or
Hands. I think there's
hands.
one where it's a hand.
There's some of them have hair even. It's really hilarious, but kind of cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's they venerate these things like so much. They will have masses and like once a year where they bring out these icons, these items, and sort of have a mass venerating them. And it's just, I think it's a little silly, you know, as a non-Catholic, but it is, I admire it at the very least to keep
Yeah.
that tradition going so long.
I was going to say we should bring it back. Jordan, you're welcome to worship my skull after I die.
Ah,
Yeah.
excellent.
I most certainly will spit on it.
Drink from it. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Like 800 years have passed pretty much since the Horus Heresy, and that veneration and like all the other Primarchs one by one have left, and like they would just look up to Dorn as like the last creature of a like of a long dead age, you know, of the only person who actually seen the Emperor. Yeah. Cool to be turned into living relics, or to just relics, I guess, for him.
I've never read the Space Marine novel, but I've always wanted to. It's kind of been on my list of 40K books to read. But it feels, just from the look, like reading the description and some of the art on the book, it's very retro, and it does feel like old school 40K, very fantasy, you know, where before it was super sci-fi.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the book. You described that all perfectly, where it's like almost it's almost like Rogue Trader era. It's very different, but in that we get a beautiful scene of a Space Marine eating his own shit, his own recycled shit in his power armor for days and days. So
Have you read this book?
yeah, I've skimmed through it and I found that passage. When we had the Lorehammer library, I made sure to get a copy of that classic piece.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think that part's still canon. If I haven't seen them rewrite it, then we have to assume it's
we have to assume it's still canon that Space Marines are just eating recycled shit.
that is a scientific approach. Yeah.
Yeah. Seth says in the chat, he said, where did that go? I won't quote it exactly. I can't find it. But he basically said, I hate how, oh, there it is. I hate how people think Dorn is dead because of first edition lore. Yeah, that's pretty much what that was all about. Like, you know, his very first lore says he died, and then GW kind of expanded and realized what they were wanting to do with everybody and everything, and then kind of made it so they could bring him back and whatever.
Liar also in the chat says the hand, as in the hand of Rogal Dorn, is actually made of wraithbone, a normal everyday material.
A normal everyday material, says so be it by canon. Yikes. All right, let's get into Dorn's personality post heresy. Before the heresy, Rogal Dorn was a figure defined by unwavering sense of duty, precision, and honor. A born leader with great strategic mind and iron will, Dorn was deeply committed to the Great Crusade and the Emperor's vision for the Imperium. His personality was forged in the fires of constant conflict, and he viewed weakness with disdain, both in others and within himself. Though stern and unyielding, Dorn was not without compassion for his legion, believing in their strength and discipline above all else. His leadership was founded on the principles of responsibility, accountability, and relentless pursuit of perfection. While not openly warm as some of his brothers, Dorn's loyalty to the Emperor and his warriors was absolute, and he had an unshakable belief in the necessity of the sacrifice for the greater good. The outbreak of the Horus Heresy irrevocably changed Dorn. The betrayal of his brothers and the horrors of the conflict hardened him further. During the heresy, he became a man of singular purpose, driven by grim necessity of defending Terra and the Emperor. His personal anguish of seeing his family torn apart by treachery weighed heavily on him, yet Dorn's resolve only grew stronger. His loyalty to the Emperor became an all-consuming fire, and he embraced the role of the Imperium's final defender with grim determination. The Siege of Terra in particular saw Dorn's inner torment manifested in his leadership. He was resolute but distant, as if he has accepted that the battle was one of survival than triumph. His action, this is kind of interesting. This view of battle is just like a way of survival than triumph. It's almost like that cold mindset of just like when you're raised on a nice world, like survival is all that's important. It's not necessarily, the killing's not done by rage necessarily, or like hatred, or like it's like you got to do it. It's the only way we're all going to survive. You got to do things in the cold to survive.
It's just a matter of fact.
Yeah, it breeds a different type of people. As Canadians, you know it.
Ruthless and savage.
Bearded and strong. Sexy too, by the look of you.
Definitely.
Actually, there is something to that statement. Canada has its undue list of war crimes, especially around World War I. People can go Google it.
Neat.
Yeah.
Neat. After the heresy, Dorn's personality remained just as unyielding, but a deeper sorrow began to shape him. The war had left an incredible mark, and though the Imperium needed his strength, Dorn was forever changed. The loss of so many brothers, whether through betrayal or death, took a toll on him, and his once clear view on the Emperor's vision became clouded by the sheer scale of the cost, the weight of his duty as the Praetorian of Terra, and later, as a guiding force for the Imperial Fists, became a solitary burden. He withdrew to the fortress monastery, ever focused on the defense of the Imperium. Yet the fire of his earlier years had dimmed, replaced by a cold, hard reality of the galaxy had never foreseen, or had forever been altered by the heresy. His resolve to protect humanity never wavered, but Dorn's spirit tempered by the grim realization that war had never truly ended, and that he would remain forever a soldier, bound by his oath, even in the face of overwhelming loss. Yikes. Yikes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, Dorn is very much a tragic character, especially, towards the end of his life. Like, his life is just riddled with, whether it's fair or not, like failure. Whether it is fair to, assume responsibility for it all, it certainly would be in his eyes a failure on himself.
Yeah.
We do kind of get to see a little bit, though, as, not a full Dorn War Master, but a little bit of a Dorn War Master, where he goes on the Scouring and he is able to retake the galaxy. And he's the last one. I wonder when the last Primarch besides him actually left. I think it was probably Reboot Gilliman. And maybe I'll look up a little date here quick. But
yeah, when he gets slashed by...
Or maybe the chat should look some of those up so I'm not having to do that and talk
Bully.
at the same time. But
Another quick thing I wanted to mention too is kind of Dorn's. I remember a little while back we had that whole debate about soldier versus warrior archetypes.
I loved that.
And as much as
Yeah.
I'm opposed to it broadly, Dorn definitely falls into the soldier category, right? You have someone like Leman Russ who's more like the warrior, and Dorn's more like the soldier, just
Yeah.
in temperament. Never mind. I won't say it. We'll carry on.
Say it. We
No, I was just thinking. Every time I talk about failure in an artistic way, I think of like The Last Jedi and Luke Skywalker, and like I don't want to equate Dorn with that failure of a franchise and movie, but it does creep into the back of my mind whenever I discuss it.
Interesting. Okay, nice little double nerding.
Yeah, but it's gross. I don't want to forget I said anything. I don't want to associate Dorn with that wreckage.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Let's talk about Rogal Dorn's Heresy era war gear. Dorn's personal war gear remained largely unchanged throughout the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, a testament to his unwavering discipline and unyielding nature. His iconic suit of power armor, reinforced with the finest materials and adorned with the insignia of the Imperial Fists, remained a symbol of his unshakable resolve. His standard issue bolt gun and chainsword, tools of both leadership and destruction, saw him through countless battles without modification, reflecting his belief in the purity of the Astartes' purpose. However, two notable changes did occur during the course of the heresy: the modification of his personal Thunderhawk gunship and the tactical shift to using the Phalanx as his primary command center. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, not a lot. Typically, the chainsword is like seen as the baseline weapon, and anytime you can, especially like your commanders and leaders, you usually want to upgrade from a chainsword. But Dorn uses a chainsword. Like, he uses the most basic weapon set. Now, obviously, they're probably better than your typical chainsword, but they're still a basic chainsword nonetheless, relative to like a power fist or a thunder hammer or something like that. Although power fist would make sense for Rogal Dorn considering his theme, but
I wish they did chain weapons differently on tabletop. I think they should not be worse. I think they should be different. Like, a chain weapon on an orc is gonna be incredible, but like a power sword on an orc, okay, so you severed his arm, or like, so your sword went clean through him, good for you. But that chain sword, it's just so much more violent and messy against unarmored targets. So I think it has its place still. I think it's just, I just don't think it's represented well enough.
yeah, I agree with you. But as it stands, yeah, like chain weapons typically are like the baseline, and then you typically upgrade from there.
Yeah.
And I think that even in the choice of weapon set, it does kind of speak to the character of Dorn as well.
Yeah.
Another thing,
like, even his pistol is just like a bolt pistol.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it the last episode, but it's just, oh no, it is a Custodes bolt pistol, but still just kind of a bolt pistol.
Yeah. We shouldn't say just, but yes, it is a bolt pistol. Like, again, he's using the symbols or weapons of the common soldier, of the common man, or the common space marine, which again, like, it's kind of an oxymoron, but is true. Yeah, which again I think reflects on him as a person. One thing I wanted to mention, kind of running back,
Not exceptional,
but not in a bad way. Like, you're implying.
Yeah, we mentioned at the beginning just his track record. It's like there's no outstanding victories, but there's no losses either. It's just win down the sheet.
Yeah. But anyway, speaking to his leadership, he is listed not as Lord Commander during the Horus Heresy as well. So like, he does fulfill like that overall command. And when you're in that kind of role, it's almost like War Master. Like, you're in charge of the fleet and the army and the overall defense, which is still a huge responsibility. So in a way, like, Rogal Dorn does peek through as like what could have been as a War Master. He's put in charge of pretty much the biggest threat the Imperium has faced up until that point. So I'm just trying to prop Rogal Dorn up a little bit here.
All right, let's get into the Aetos Dios. After repeated assassination attempts by the traitor legions in the wake of the Horus Heresy, it became clear that Rogal Dorn's survival could no longer be left to chance. The defenders of Terra required their Praetorian, and the enemies of mankind knew it well. In response, Magos Telluria of Mars constructed a singular instrument of war, a personal Thunderhawk gunship, forged for Dorn alone. Unlike standard variants, this gunship was not a tool of mere transportation. It was a fortress in motion. Its traditional armaments were stripped away and replaced with devastating turbo lasers, capable of sundering armored columns, and Titan-class void shield powerful enough to repel barrages that would break lesser craft. This was no mere vehicle. It was a bulwark against treachery, a vessel built to carry the will of the Emperor's most resolute son into the storm.
So if you can have a personal Thunderhawk, Christian, which he does, why can you not have your own personal Starfort?
No, I'm not saying you can't have it. I'm just saying, can you list it as war gear? Can you are you wearing this? Are you?
Maybe he can plug into it like a Titan or something.
Yeah.
So it's like part of him.
Right.
Headcanon here. Headcanon.
Sure. It plugs into a port in his anus. Sure.
Yes. Sit on the throne.
It's got a giant spike in the middle of it.
Yeah, okay. Good thing you're not in charge of the lore.
That's also what the pain glove is known as.
Oh, shit.
Little known fact, it's both.
Oh my god, I don't like that. Oh man. Okay, so the phalanx does count. We talked about it on the last episode, but I kind of left it short. I didn't want to talk about its role in the Horus history. Horus history until this episode. So let's build on it. And we're going to be bringing it up too in the Imperial Fist episodes because it comes up multiple times across the galaxy in like crucial moments. So here's a little bit more about it. Throughout the long crucible of the Horus Heresy, the phalanx, the immense void fortress of the Imperial Fists, remained in high orbit over Terra, a sentinel in the stars and a seat of Rogal Dorn's strategic command. As the appointed Praetorian of Terra, Dorn used the phalanx to coordinate the defenses of the throne world and the fortifications of the Imperial Palace. But as the tide of war surged ever closer, the traitor legions breached the Sol system. Dorn withdrew to the Bahab bastion within the palace itself to oversee the final defense. Yet even as the walls of the Imperium trembled, Dorn sought to wield the phalanx one final time as a sword against the invaders. He took personal command of the fortress, intending to unleash its fury upon the traitor fleets erupting from the warp near Luna and Mars. Disaster struck from within. Mercedes Orleton, a once trusted remembrancer, inadvertently opened a rift to the Imperium, through which the demon Samus poured, bringing with it a horde of the warp's vilest spawn. As the demonic infestation spread, the phalanx teetered on the edge of damnation. But Dorn, resolute to the last, prepared to destroy the fortress rather than allow it to fall to the enemy. Oletin, regaining her will in her final moments, took her own life to seal the rift, casting Samus and its kin back into the warp. The phalanx was spared, but only just. Wounded and battered, the fortress was no longer fit for the defense of Terra. With the siege drawing near, Dorn exhausted, entrusted Admiral Noya Sukaisen with a new mission. Take the phalanx back beyond the heart of the Sol, harrow the traitors' real lines, and ensure the enemy would know no safety, not even in their own shadows. I love that this is how they kind of dealt with the phalanx. Like, if it stayed above Terra during the actual assault, like, how does it survive? And this was a fun... Yeah, exactly. And it's such an iconic piece, man. You can't let that happen. So fun little way to deal with it.
They could have, hold on, hear me out. What if they had destroyed it and then the phalanx that we know in 40K is actually the phalanx 2?
Ooh, and then in the Black Crusade, the 13th one, it's phalanx 3 that they commissioned. Yes. Now that goes against the lore of it being a one of a kind piece of technology from the Dark Age of Man, but other than for that very Wraithbone-y lore shift, yeah, great.
Good.
Then the phalanx reborn, and then the phalanx apocalypse.
Two phalanx furious.
It's like the Transformers movies.
You know, though, I never quite put that to Phalanx Phoenix. Yeah, never mind. Nah. It does seem to rise again a bunch, though, man. It gets battered and broken
it gets beat
so
up
many
a lot.
times, and then it comes back. What is the ship called? Perseus? Theseus?
The ship of Theseus.
Yeah, that exactly. That's the phalanx right now.
It's been replaced so many times. Each piece replaced so many times. Is it truly the phalanx anymore?
True. Are you truly the same person you are if every cell of your body is different every 7 years?
There is another thought experiment about that you're never the same person because you move forward through time. I forget what it's called, but it's like a philosophical similar
Wow.
idea as a ship of Theseus. Like, are you truly the same person because you've like developed all these like experiences and personality as you ever were? Like every day you're a new person. But
Nah, I'm never gonna change. I'm dug
I'm
in.
set in my ways, just
Set
like
in
Dorn would
my
have
ways.
wanted.
All right, let's get into the pain glove. Also known as the nerve glove, is a device of agony employed by certain Space Marine chapters with particular prevalence among the Imperial Fists. The device is a glove of electrofiber mesh suspended within a vertical shift, covering the body from neck to toe, leaving the head exposed. It conforms to the wearer's body like a second skin. The pain glove stimulates the nervous system, inducing excruciating pain throughout the body without causing physical injury. Its cruel design suppresses the body's reflexes, ensuring the victim remains conscious throughout the torment. Space Marines are no strangers to pain. And the purpose of the pain glove is not merely suffering, but endurance. The true goal is for the Marine to transcend the pain, to seek enlightenment, for even to forge a mental bond with their Primarch. The Imperial Fists, masters of discipline, employ the device extensively. Some believe their use of the pain glove is rooted in their Primarch Rogal Dorn's own meditation, using it as both a means of penitence and a method to reaffirm their commitment to the Emperor. After a mission, the Battle Brothers subject themselves to its torment, purging their minds and souls through suffering. The longest known endurance of the pain glove at level Tertius, without losing sanity, is 52 minutes. After that time, the pain inflicted becomes burned into the nerves, permanent and unyielding. So, like the Imperial Fists really are committed to like asceticism.
Can you please define that word? I don't know if I could.
Like it's a sort of a way of discipline where you hurt yourself intentionally. I'm gonna just look up the actual.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
don't even know if
it's not
hurting
like a
yourself.
beating.
It's self-denial kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
so disciplined you like don't engage in anything that is pleasurable,
Yeah.
but not like necessarily not in a sexual way. All of that is part of it, but like
yeah,
self-denial of comforts, I guess.
yeah,
Huh.
But for religious purposes, I think it's a step further to like something like self-flagellation, like punishing the self.
Yeah.
Which again, I just keep stressing this like idea of like failure does weigh heavy on the Imperial Fists, Rogal Dorn, and his success, his children, the Imperial Fists, and even the Black Templars, right? Like Sigismund fails his Primarch quite heavily. I don't know if that's a word, but he fails his Primarch, and there's a whole thing about that. And the whole idea of the Black Templars is like based out of like this, like Jordan said, this ascetic like spirituality, but also like again a response to a feeling of failure. Like it's almost that like counter reaction to like, oh, I did so horribly, so now I have to double down and be twice as whatever thing that I failed at. But
yeah, and not to be confused with ascetics, which is like more about beauty and form. But asceticism is like an extreme pain, kind of almost painful discipline, usually for like religious purposes. But this is sort of this would kind of fit asceticism to like wear the pain glove and for the purposes of focusing your mind, and achieving enlightenment, if you will.
The next relic we have, war gear from Dorn, is the Sword of Sebastus. The Sword of Sebastus, known as Dorn's Blade, is a revered relic to all successive chapters of the Imperial Fists. This weapon was the second blade Rogal Dorn took up after shattering his first over his knee.
The act occurred in the wake of his failure to protect the Emperor aboard Horus's battle barge. He emerged from the iron cage, broken yet unbound, wielding the sword of Sebastius. It stands as one of the most sacred artifacts of Dorn, awarded to the victors of the ceremony of Feast of Blades, a brutal contest that tests the strength and resolve of each chapter. And its description, unlike the ornate weapons of many, the sword of Sebastius is forged in simplicity, carved from a single piece of adamantium. It bears little adornment save for the counterbalance prism and the numerals 7 stamped on the crossguard. Its purpose is clear: to serve in battle, and it has for countless generations. Fucking cool sword. I like that the Feast of Blades, where all the chapters of the Imperial Fists get together. You know, you see your Black Templar, your Crimson Fists there battling for this cool sword.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to what we're saying. Like, okay, so now he's using a power sword, but it's also very unornate, right? Like very simple, very basic. Its form is its function. Like it's not overly gilded or anything like that.
Yeah, which is funny because when you look at his armor, it's the exact fucking opposite. That guy has more eagles on him and is made of gold. Only the Emperor has better armor in the whole galaxy.
I would agree. Yeah, it's a duality of Dorn. He's this stalwart guy, but also has that inner rage. Yeah. He's
when he was buying and getting all his weapons made, he was calm Dorn. But then when he ordered his armor, that one day he was mad and he went and did something crazy.
Give me the shiniest.
I want eagle wings.
Right. His next sword is the Sword of the High Marshals. The Sword of the High Marshals, also known as the Sword of Sigismund, is a mastercrafted power sword said to contain fragments of the blade once wielded by Rogal Dorn during the Horus Heresy. It is the holiest relic of the Black Templars, presented to their chapter master, the High Marshal, upon his election. This ritual is followed by the declaration of his first crusade. Legend holds that Dorn shattered his sword across his knee in a moment of searing fury at the failure to protect the Emperor aboard the Vengeful Spirit during the final hours of the Siege of Terra. He swore to never wield it again. In the aftermath, Sigismund and the first High Marshal of the Black Templars had the shattered remains reforged into the Sword of the High Marshals, a weapon passed down to each successive High Marshal as a symbol of the eternal duty of atonement. Again, atonement for the failures, right? Like that's the whole theme. During the War of the Beast between 544 and 546 M32, when only a few High Marshals had wielded the blade, it was commonly referred to as the Sword of Sigismund. The weapon now rests in the hands of the High Marshal Helbrecht, the weight of its history carried with every strike.
The enemies feel it with every strike. Channels it.
Yes.
Yeah.
In between, like the cleaving of their limbs and the rest of their body, I'm sure they feel something else in there. Oh, this has the weight of countless generations also instilled in it.
So cool.
Yeah, that sword is pretty sweet though. It has a giant Black Templar cross in the middle of it, and it's like this big two-handed sword.
Yeah,
I love it.
Pull up a picture while I read about the sword spear, the soul spear. I got my words mixed up there.
Sword spear would be it's a glaive, I think.
The soul spear is an arcane device that Rogal Dorn supposedly wielded himself. It was entrusted to the Soul Drinkers chapter when the Imperial Fist Legion was split at the time of the second founding. According to Koroloth, an AdMech researcher, the output and effect of the weapon's discharge was comparable to that of a vortex missile, albeit more controlled.
A vortex missile. I will pull that up as you continue to read.
Okay, sure.
But it's fun.
I want to see this. Eventually, Koroloth and her team of acolytes were able to bypass the weapon's gene locks and test fire it. The resulting explosion destroyed Koroloth's laboratory and killed 2 of the personnel working there. Koroloth would go on to steal the soul spear for herself. So that's interesting. Where did this soul spear get created? Did you get any info on that?
No, I don't think I know off the top of my head.
I am sort of curious because, like in fantasy, there's always some kind of crazy highfalutin story about a weapon special weapon, how it's created. And there's so many of these weapons. I want to know how it was made.
Yeah, like which blacksmith is making all these badass things?
Liar says in the soul.
Ah, yes,
is
of
made.
course, of course.
Thank you for the clarification.
It's
how did I not see that?
Yeah, I googled again and I couldn't find anything obvious right away. But I do know what a vortex missile is, and it's
Well, just describe it for us.
well, it's a missile, Jordan, that is typically fired from Imperial Titans, and is one of the rarest weapons available in the Imperium. These weapons are rare and powerful, tearing apart the very fabric of reality to create a gaping hole that sucks everything it touches into the warp.
It's like a warp weapon.
Yes, and this is actually constructed using psychers to channel the raw energy of the warp into an intercontinental ballistic missile. So that's fun. But this spear, it hits like a fucking vortex missile. Where does it like when it hits you, it opens up a portal to the warp and like literally sucks your soul into it? You know, maybe
that seems to be the case.
Seems to be.
Do you think it was forged by killing psychers?
Yes, maybe. Yeah, like what is it called? Like quenching in blood or whatever instead of water.
Yeah.
I hear that's not good for the sword though. But what do I
actually? I just read something about that earlier today about how Vikings would quench their blades in blood as kind of like a blood magic ritual, but it was a tradition that they inherited from Rome, where Romans were improving the steel by like getting the carbon and iron from the blood into the sword. But then it became like this ritualistic practice that they didn't know why they did it. They just did it, and it seemed to make better blades. How much of that is like legendary and how much is actually true, I don't know. But I did read about that earlier, which is kind of funny. You should mention it now.
Interesting. Yeah, I wish Fuzz was in the chat even today, but it doesn't look like he is tonight because he's a blacksmith, so he would tell me the truth. I can trust his beard; it wouldn't lie to me.
Yeah, he definitely has probably quenched a blade or two in a pig or something, or a human.
Sure, yeah. Blood's blood at that point. You're not.
You're
not really preferential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's also, I don't know if we mentioned that it was wielded. Is it wielded by Sarpedon?
Yeah, it does eventually make its hands into the Soul Drinkers chapter and all that,
and they have like a very powerful psyker connection. So just wanted to throw that out there too with the use of the weapon.
Yeah, it's fun how we talked a little bit about it on the last episode, how the chapters in the second founding that were created, the Black Templar, the Crimson Fists, and the Soul Drinkers were all kind of different aspects of Dorn, where you got the Black Templars. They were that like rage, man, like that like Fury. Inner rage. Yeah, the Fury. Then I believe the Crimson Fists were like veterans and like more defender class, like
stalwart defenders.
Yeah, and then the Imperial Fists kind of just took whoever was kind of the in-between or whatever.
Yeah, I kind of like that. And on that note too, it should be noted that the Black Templars are very anti-psyker, whereas the Soul Drinkers are very psyker heavy too. So like you can see where their psykers probably all fed into.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of what the Soul Drinkers' main purpose was. Because that one, it's harder to piece together. Like what aspect of Dorn's personality was, or of the Imperial Fist personality too, were they kind of mimicking?
Embodying,
yeah, hard to say. The final piece of war gear, and this isn't his, but it's honorable mention, and that's the new Rogal Dorn battle tank that came out, I don't know, like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Pretty fucking cool. And it's an Astra Militarum heavy battle tank that is named after the Primarch, Rogal Dorn, perfectly exemplifying its namesake. The Rogal Dorn tank is a behemoth of a vehicle that perfectly suited for smashing enemy positions and anchoring defensive lines. It's one of the largest tanks in the Imperial Guard's inventory, barely a step down from true super heavies like the Baneblade. Basically, he's like, I see you, Layman Russ. That thing's a bitch tank. This is a
just like its Primarch.
Yeah. When you're done playing with your puppy dogs, this is a man's tank.
If I'm not mistaken, and I very well could be, I do think the Rogal Dorn did it not exist previously, like as a either Forge World or like Was it really introduced truly with this Imperial Guard revamp, or did it pre-exist as a tank and they just kind of made a plastic mass-produced version? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There's so many freaking tanks in 40K and so many variants that I personally am not a tank guy.
I'm searching right now, but I don't see anything obvious right away on the typical haunts.
Okay, well, I will get into the legacy of Rogal Dorn. His legacy endures as one of the most steadfast and unyielding figures in the history of the Imperium. As the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, his impact on the chapter is profound and everlasting. Under the leadership of the Imperial Fists, under his leadership, the Imperial Fists became the epitome of siege warfare and steadfast defense. Their discipline and tenacity instilled by Dorn's own unrelenting resolve. His teachings shaped them into an unbreakable force, each Astartes driven by the same values of duty, sacrifice, and loyalty to the Emperor. In the aftermath of the Horus Heresy, the Imperial Fists carried Dorn's banner, guarding Terra itself and ensuring that the traitors would never claim the Emperor's throne. Beyond the chapter, Dorn's legacy is woven into the very fabric of the Imperium. His tireless efforts during the Great Crusade and the Siege of Terra helped preserve the Imperium through some of its darkest hours. As the Praetorian of Terra, he stood as the Emperor's shield, both in the physical and ideological sense, embodying the ideal of unwavering loyalty and the harsh realities of war. His role in the defense of humanity, particularly during the Siege of Terra, cemented his place as a bulwark against the forces of chaos. His tactical genius and sheer willpower ensuring the survival of the Imperium, if only just. Among the traitors, Dorn's name was a constant reminder of what they had turned against. His actions throughout the heresy was a grim testament to his resolve and his refusal to yield, even in the face of overwhelming odds, burn into the minds of his former brothers. For the traitor legions, Dorn represented everything they had forsaken: honor, duty, and loyalty. His undying presence loomed over their every defeat. And even in death, his legacy served as a reminder of their failure. To the traitors, Dorn's death marked not, well, quote-unquote death, marked not the end of his influence, but the continuation of their eternal struggle against the unyielding example. His memory remains a symbol of everything they can never undo: the betrayal of a brother, the fall of the Imperium, and the unbroken spirit of the Imperium that Dorn had embodied in life and death. Yeah. Like, Dorn is the antithesis to the traitors. Like, he is the shining example of everything that they were not.
And even if like he did not have any great achievements or high accomplishments like many of his other brother Primarchs, his lasting legacy, his enduring legacy was just, his loyalty and his vicious pursuit of the traitors. I think that for in and of itself is, speaks of his character and his accomplishments. Which a lot of people, they can't say that for themselves. They can, but Rogal Dorn can.
I wouldn't say that Dorn doesn't have his great achievements. I just think his came after pretty much the heresy. Like, he hangs. First of all, he stays out of the fight. Okay, first of all, during the Great Crusade, he's like an average Primarch, let's say. Like, he's got his wins, but he doesn't really stand out amongst the true greats. But by the time of the heresy, he has to sit out most of the fighting because he's pretty much waiting for the fight to come to him. He's preparing. But I think from that point forward is where Dorn really does make great achievements and is credited with defending like pretty much an unwinnable siege. He, at least tries to go out toe to toe with Horus. He just gets there too late. He, does put the Emperor on the Golden Throne. He is in charge of the entire military of the Imperium. He does conduct the Scouring. Like, I think.
Which, man, that's going to be a sweet fucking era if they do it. I think
it should be Dorn heavy. Like, Dorn should be the main character in that.
Yeah, but it is interesting that he only really shines in the crisis, like in the sort of during the Great Crusade, everything's going good for the Imperium. Nothing's going bad. They're just like conquering the galaxy, killing filthy Xenos, and Rogal Dorn is being like largely overlooked. But then you get the whole crisis, and he's the one who sort of rises to the occasion.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think, again, speaking to his simplicity and like his duty and soldier personality type, I think he represents something in that of like being great again, like it's hard to do with someone like a Primarch. They're all inherently great, but like stepping up.
Demigods.
Yeah, exactly. But like in his case, like for his level, like stepping into the crisis when the crisis comes, right? Like this is when average ordinary men become heroes, right? Like, you know, you're just living your life and then great tragedy or crisis falls upon your shoulders and suddenly you do step up to the challenge and do great things. I think that is an element to Rogal's story and legacy. On top of everything else I kept repeating about like the weight of failure and again, whether or not it's truly deserved, at least he takes it on his shoulders, which again is in line.
It kind of sucks because, like you said, he wins that unwinnable war. He just didn't know. Like he didn't know that Reboot Gilliman and the other forces were just days away, man. That was the whole gambit. They're like, man, like things are getting rough. Like, what do we do? Okay, let's do this. But if he would have just not teleported for another 2 days, that would have been it.
And that itself isn't really his call, right? Like the Emperor wanted to do it, and you don't.
And typically, when you have a bodyguard, you actually like subcede your power and authority to them to make the call. And I don't think Dorn was like, yeah, let's go up to Horus's flagship there, Emperor. No. Like you said, the Emperor superseded his bodyguard authority and kind of like took him away from the safety.
Yeah. Like, and that also leads into the tragedy of it, right? Like, imagine having a guy who does all these great things and he still looks at his own list of achievements and he's like, man, I failed so bad. Like,
fuck,
I really screwed this up. But like, had it been, what if it was anyone else? Like, could you say that they would have achieved even half as much?
Sure. Right? Yeah. I like him, man. I've always liked Dorn, and you know, after kind of reading post Horus Heresy books and what became of him and what happened and all that, I think I just like him even more. He was often accused of kind of being bland or characterless, but like you just got to look for the moments of passion where you see like the fun stuff happen.
Yeah.
He's killed fucking Primarchs before. Like this dude's gangster.
Yeah, I'd say like overall in the fan base, he kind of gets memed on a lot too, and not so much deserved in his case. I think he's very
Make
much
fun of Porterabo all you want. That one checks out. He's a little bitch boy, but like Rogal Dorn, come on.
Although
say that to his face.
Dorn and the Fists are very popular amongst the fan base. I will say more so the Black Templars, but definitely Imperial Fists have their fans as well. It's just they're so hard to freaking paint.
Well, that's all for our notes. We got a little time for a quick call in, and looks like Seth is already chomping on the bit. I wonder what he's gonna say. Let's just make him wait for another second. Christian, how was your day? Did you get up to anything interesting?
Nothing good, I'll say that.
Okay, nice. I like that I can see Seth freaking out on the camera, but no one else can. He's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm fired up and ready to go. Okay.
Put him in the glove of pain, the pain glove.
This is the pain glove for him, I think. Just imagine if I never pick up and I'm just making eye contact with him right now while he gets
What if we just ended the show right now?
Oh, that might break a young boy's soul, though. Let's not do that to the poor guy. Yo, Seth, what's good?
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
He made it.
Hello.
Come out of the pain glove. You're okay.
It hurt. Not too much. Not too much. Of course, I'm strong, like Papa Dorn.
So yeah, you're like a huge fanboy of Rogal Dorn. What do you like about him so much?
Oh my gosh, so much.
A little bit about last time, but like, how about this now?
To expand a bit on it, I really like Imperial Fists and I really like Leagues of Voted because they're both solid factions, you know? And it's a bit personal for me, but I like trying to be able to relate to Rogal Dorn, how he's like, you know, an anchor. He's solid against the craziness of the Horus Heresy and the Great Scouring. He was able to, you know, keep it together. And I thought that's really neat, and
I thought that was really neat of him.
I just thought that was neat. But I like the idea of having a character who's an anchor, and you know, I just enjoy him. Of course, he's
Yeah.
been gone for 10,000 years, but what of
He'll be
it?
back though, man. Like, there's still no way at this point he's not coming back with all the other ones that didn't outright die, because there are a few.
Yeah, and he does have those traits that are worth actually embodying in real life. Like he is,
Right.
again, it's part of that relatability, right? Like he steps up. He is kind of an everyman in this, again, on the scale of Primarchs, but he is an everyman that steps up. And like you said, there's a lot to be said for those people in your life that are anchors, especially in times of crisis. And like to aspire to be that for other people is a noble.
Right. When I grow up, I want to be Rogal Dorn.
You can do it. You can do it. I believe in you.
I'm a growing boy. I can be, 12 foot tall. Maybe one day I can grow some hair on my face. Besides,
That's what I was
eyebrows.
gonna say. It's all gonna depend whether or not you can grow a beard.
One day.
Like
I feel like I'm being out facial haired by everybody in this live stream, and you too can see their facial hair and my lack of facial hair if you join the Patreon. Woo! Shills for the Patreon god.
Isn't Rogal Dorn babyface?
No, he
or
does.
am I-
He's clean
am I
shaven in
wrong?
canon.
And very stern looking,
okay.
like many wrinkles in his forehead, like he's been scouring for 200 years at you.
Scowling.
Like a soldier. like a good old sergeant, drill sergeant.
So here's the question. If Rogal Dorn does come back, what do we want to see? Like a good example of fun things like Lemon Rusty comes back. It's a werewolf. What about Rogal Dorn? What's his gimmick?
I was
or vibe?
thinking about this earlier, and I wanted to ask you guys a question. I have a wish list. I have like a wish list by tiers of how I want Dorn to come back. Number one,
Lay it on me.
it's kind of unlikely because it's a firstborn unit, but I love Centurions. They're so cool. And if Dorn came back in like some sort of Centurion giant war suit, because Dorn is Dorn is a heavy weapons guy, but he's not a Terminator. To me, he's not a Terminator. So I feel like Dorn coming back with Centurion armor would be pretty sick. Number two is him coming back in a Dreadnought, but that means we wouldn't get to see his awesome stash if GW decides to give him it.
No. They still have on the Dreadnoughts how you can flip open the cock or the coffin. You flip it open, and there he is. Shit, he's missing two hands.
They have a trapdoor they open up just so Dorn can scowl at the Chaos Space Marines or whatever he's fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Number two would be Terminator armor, because Terminator armor is still awesome. Number three has to be Dorn coming back dead.
Look, we found his corpse.
Confirmation that he's dead.
It's like, we released a new book. It's all about Dorn. It's dead body. He's dead. He's dead now. Look at his dead body.
Dead.
If they recanonized the
he
original
just made
Space
me
Marine book,
sad.
I would not be able to sleep for the next couple months. Oh, God.
I think Dreadnought Dorn would be sweet. Of your options, Dreadnought Dorns. Yeah. I wish they would have done that with Rogal or with Reboot Gilliman, but they went a different route of Xenos Heresy, I guess, for some reason.
Right. It looks like they're trying to sort of stick with how they originally were doing the Horus Heresy, which is like, sure, I get that you'd want to stick with the lore and YGW wouldn't want to make any radical changes to the character. And, just be like, oh, it's Rogal Dorn. I do hope that they remember that he has lost a hand, though. If they brought him back and said, what do you mean? He's always had two hands.
He's always said, yeah.
So there is room in the lore being that they don't know for sure that it's Rogal Dorn's hand. That being said, a Primarch's hand would be quite large. So I feel like that would be hard to screw up.
Gee, whose hand could this be? And it's like the size of an Imperial Fist's head.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but could he have just lost it, like got his hand cut off and fighting? And
that's
survived?
that's the implication. We're not sure that he's dead because he is at a minimum missing at least one hand. I'm going for the whole Darth Vader. He should come back with all bionic limbs.
Yeah,
but
your Iron Fists. Yeah. It's really cool. Mark, you remember the other live stream how I was having nightmares about Rogal Dorn coming back and leading Black Templars instead of Imperial Fists? Yeah. I cannot bear the idea of Dorn coming back and leading the Iron.
Oh man, I don't know. I kind of fell in love with that idea, honestly.
Yeah, and he would unite the whole last wall thing. Like he'd be like, obviously the Codex didn't work, things are not going well, I'm reuniting my Legion. And then you would have him leading the Black Templars and the Imperial
But you
Fists,
just have... I love the last wall. I know Chapter Master Volrak, one of the 40k YouTubers, he made a last wall protocol army, which is really sick. I really would like to see more Soul Drinkers. I did read the omnibus. The Soul Spear is super cool. It's like a Darth Maul's lightsaber, but with void energy, and it's
Nice.
just so neat.
Cool.
But they're currently doing whatever in the warp. I know there's a second omnibus, but I haven't been able to find that yet.
Yeah, well,
And I don't know, would they show up? Because they're renegades, but they still believe in Dorn, and
yeah, like 10,000 years into the future. Like, yeah, who knows? I don't know. So I haven't
All
read
the-
the Soul Drinker book, so I honestly don't know too much, to be honest.
It's amazing. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I have a cursory of knowledge, but
All the Fist successors show up on the Phalanx, and Dorn somehow comes back. Somehow Dorn returned. And Dorn's like, hey, where are the Soul Drinkers? And the Black Templars and Crimson Fists are both covered in blood, and they're like, I don't know, man. They showed up, but they had to leave.
They didn't stay long. Yeah.
One of them is tossing Sarpedon's giant body out of like an airlock. Look, he's waving at
With
us.
his many 8 legs.
Oh, yeah, it's so rad.
Well, any other thoughts there about Rogal Dorn you want to get off your chest? It's now or never again.
Oh no! Now that we're in the moment, I'm freezing up. Do you think Dorn would like the modern Imperium? Like, do you think he would like what Guilliman and Line have done?
Man, like, part of me thinks when Dorn comes back, he's gonna be pissed. Like, that's so pissed. Like, there won't be calm, collected Dorn anymore. There's gonna be like, are you sure you're not serving corn now? You're away for some time in the warp. Like, I want that level of rage when he comes back. And I just don't think he cares at all about the Imperium and the way that it runs and operates. I think at that point, he just cares about, like, killing heretics. That's what he cares about.
I heard Lion was like super angry and stuff during the Horus Heresy, but then he kind of mellowed out in the 42nd millennium.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the opposite with Dorn.
Exactly. This is the flip.
Not to the point where he's a Black Templar. Yeah,
no, like, Dorn and Guilliman often get compared because they're both kind of like reasonable, but they're very different. Like, Dorn is not an administration guy in the same regard as Guilliman. Like, he is not that Lord Commander. He's not planning the administration or the Codex Astartes. He is a soldier first.
He's more commander than he is lord.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good way to say it, but yeah. But he is war, not anything beyond that.
Right.
So I think if he came back, he would just fucking be angry and wouldn't care what the Imperium's up to. He's like, I got my enemies to kill. You guys can worship, do whatever you want. You guys are kind of weird, but whatever.
And he becomes Rogal Dorn.
Rogal Dorn.
And he leads the World Eaters.
Oh, man.
The ultimate trifecta of Dorn leading the wrong legions.
now we're talking, son of a bitch. I'm in.
We got Templars, we got Iron Hands, and we got Rogal leading the World Eaters.
Oh, man.
But yeah, that's it for me. Excited for Imperial Fists.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for calling in. We will talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, well, that was the only call-ins. Any other thoughts on your guys' end or any other thing you want to hunt down?
No, I think I've said my piece for Dorn. I think I've dropped my little insights all the way through. Don't want to repeat myself too much.
Yeah, no. Good.
Where do you rank him on your list of Primarchs that you like? Like, is he towards the top? Is he number 1? Is he towards the bottom?
You go, Jordan.
He's a company man. He's kind of in the middle there for me. He's
a company man. That's so funny.
Not wrong.
Yeah. That's apt.
Mark, where's he at?
Yeah, I think he's in the top 3 for sure. Like, I've always liked him. I've always liked how reasonable and like believable he is and grounded as well. Like, you get some people just running around being crazy and you're like, how did we get here? Like, what is happening with Conrad Kurz? Like, yeah, it's too much, but I've always liked him for sure.
Yeah.
What about you?
He's kind of all over the map. Sometimes I really like him. Sometimes, yeah, he's like mid-tier. Don't really see anything special in him. But that's also, I think, kind of the point. At times, anyways. But yeah, maybe top 5. I'd say he's up there, but he's not number 1. Fulgrim will always be Lord of my heart.
I like Fulgrim too. Yeah.
No, Jordan, Horus is at the top of your heart.
Well,
Yeah.
Fulgrim's like maybe in my top 3, but yeah.
Fulgrim likes you too, Jordan.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Cool. Well, what an episode. We got 2 more episodes of Imperial Fists coming at you next, but we'll sign off for this one. If you want to come check out Lorehammer Listener Lore podcast, it's still a podcast. It's a thing. You can go listen to there's like 200 episodes out there. Go check it out. It's not fun. I read homebrew lore.
And if you want to learn more about Darth Vader or Darth Maul, who we name dropped in this episode, come check out the Star Wars podcast, where Jordan and I explore the Star Wars galaxy and bring the lore straight to your ear holes.
From their mouth holes to your ear holes, and then right to the toilet bowl because it's just kidding. Oh, man. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you all on the next episode of Lorehammer. Adios.